right, here's Image Magazine. I'm right now here on the phone. We have pastor slash author Jomo Johnson. He wrote this book, was just released in October, titled The Deadest Rapper Alive. And this book is about a rapper who calls himself the best rapper alive, none other than Lil Wayne. Now I'm very, very interested to see what this is really about and how you came up with this idea. So before we even talk about that, Pastor, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, I'm 32 years old, originally from Georgia. That's probably about 90 miles right below Atlanta. And I live in Philadelphia. I've been here for the last 2 years. I came to Philadelphia to work on my master's degree in divinity at Westminster Seminary. And last year, really just seeking the Lord, I should say 2010, since this is a new year, he called me to start a church in North Philadelphia. And I really was new to that, but wanted to step out on faith and just seek him. And so we started the church in October of 2010 and really have been going head on since then. So we've been growing. We have a good amount of youth who have been coming. North Philadelphia is a challenging area, but there's still a need for not just a church, but for people who love Jesus to get involved in the lives of people. So I have a co-pastor named Curtis, and we've been there for a little over a year now.
Okay. Well, with this book, too, is your church, do you have a lot of youth at your church? I know some churches are dominated by the youth in certain areas, and then some is more older people. With this book, about Lil Wayne, I know he influences a lot of the youth. Do you have a lot of youth at your church?
Yeah, we do. And really, kind of the motivation for the book, how it kind of began, was when I first started the ministry, when I first came to North Philadelphia. And I was new to that area. I never had really spent a lot of time there. But as I began to have interaction with the youth there, young adults, I began to see that, they weren't just Lil Wayne fans. They were fanatics. That they copied his style, they imitated his speech, his hair, his tattoos, his behaviors, really everything about him. And I've been a student of hip-hop for a long time, a hip-hop listener. And it kind of just struck me that something was going on here. It seemed to be a phenomenon. Well, I had planned to write a book, not on Lil Wayne, but on hip-hop just in general, kind of the declining state of hip-hop. But I remember in probably maybe June of 2010, when I was doing research for that book, I came across Lil Wayne's video called 6'7". And after watching it, or I shouldn't say after watching it, probably within about 15 seconds of watching it, I just broke down into tears, just really sobbing tears. Because it was like I could see the impact and the influence that he was going to have upon youth by his message and by his behavior. Now, this was the Carter 3, the last of the album before the Carter 4. So it was kind of at the height of his popularity. But I remember that it really just touched me that he was going to have a tremendous impact. Then when I went to North Philadelphia, I began to see it even more. In our church, we do have a good number of youth. I always say we're probably 60% youth, and I began to see how even young members of our church or young participants, how they had a fascination with him. So around that point in August, I said, well, I want to do something about this. This is my 8th book that I've written. I've never really written a book on hip-hop before. I never planned to again. But I said, let me do something about this. So I started to pray, started to do the research, and I was really amazed at what the Lord showed me, and I completed the project in October, and I want to get it out as widely as I can because I believe that this is going to have an impact on many people who read it.
Let me ask you this question. Lil Wayne, he is the targeted person in this book. But I guess my question is, why really Lil Wayne? Like, I know he's a big artist and he has a lot of influence, but there are so many other artists out there. The secular artists, the messages is all over the place. They talk about women calling bees and hoes, and talk about pimping, they talk about shooting and violence and selling drugs and all this kind of stuff. But why do you think Lil Wayne, why is he the person that you handpicked?
That's a good question, and that's a common question that people ask me. A lot of people, they say, well, you're just trying to profit off of his name. He's the number one rapper, so you're trying to profit off of his name. I've heard that a couple times. And I always refer to people, I'll tell them, well, my original plan was never to write about him. It was just to write on hip-hop. But as I began to study and see some things, one of the main things that I saw that Lil Wayne is the number one proponent of a philosophy which is called amoralism. Amoralism is basically where there's no right, there's no wrong. You can do whatever you want without any consequence. He's the number one proponent of that philosophy. His philosophy is seen in the way that he dresses. Lil Wayne, he wears women's clothing, men's clothing, so there's no sense of right and wrong. It's shown in his appearance. He has long hair, dreads, which is popular now, but that kind of is ambiguous. There are tattoos, which means that kind of shows that there's no right or wrong with your appearance. His lyrics, which I discuss widely in his book, some of his music, it proposes, and this is a little bit different than just some gangster rap that we've heard in the 90s. His music is proposing rape, gang rape, the murder and prostitution of women. He says that, he is God. He says that in one song, and that his album is the New Testament. So he's kind of reached a level where there's nothing holy, nothing sacred, no right, no wrong. He mocks authorities. He has a song in which he mocks slavery. And so he's the number one proponent of that type of philosophy. There are other rappers who kind of touch that. So there has been no one, not Jay-Z, not Eminem, not Young Jeezy, not Rick Ross, not even Tyler, the Creator, and he's kind of following in that same vein. There's no one who's reached that epic level of amoral philosophy. And why that is dangerous is because he's introducing it to the most vulnerable people, which are urban young youth, young children. He's introducing that to them. They've never really been exposed to some of these things before, and therefore we're beginning to see the consequence of those actions. Increased STDs with teen girls. 1 in 14 girls have the STD. Flash mobs in Philadelphia. We've been having that, since last summer. That's going on more. And we're beginning to see some other things as well. So he has been one who has promoted and introduced this philosophy in a way that has never been seen before by any African-American artist up to this day.
I guess so. With your book, is your book giving the listener a way to identify what Lil Wayne is doing in his music? I guess, are you pointing out specific things that he's saying and saying, okay, this is Lil Wayne's approach, this is his way of taking over you mentally or corrupting you? Is that how your book is actually designed?
It's designed like this, and I want to say that of any book written on him, this is the most exhaustive book on the life, on the career, on the rise, and on the musical impact of Lil Wayne. I used over 100 source references, and they're all quoted in the book. And again, out of all the books I've written, this has been the most difficult because it's taken the most time for me to study, to research, and to get resources. I had to comb through probably all of his album material. I've had to go through a number of his interview series. I've had to read other source material on him. And the way the book is set up is that it's set up first as a biographical account. So I give you from the very beginning of Lil Wayne, when he was born in New Orleans, September 27, 1982. I speak about how he was raised. I speak about, the book talks about, some things that many people don't know about his sexual abuse when he was a child, his accidental self-shooting. And I talk about how those things kind of contributed to the creation of Lil Wayne. And then I also break down his lyrics. I go through the Carter 1 through 4, breaking down certain aspects of things that he's saying, things that he's doing. And I also show how it coincides with aspects of his life during that Carter 3 period when he was saying some of the most detestable things I think rap music has ever heard. There also was an increase of arrest and criminal activity in his life. Then I go into the spiritual account. I try to leave that into later. I try to build up into that. I talk about how there's the evidence of some occult and demonic influence. And, my hope, too, is that Lil Wayne would get saved and would come to know the Lord Jesus Christ. But, yeah, it's an exhaustive look at him. It also takes a look at hip-hop in general, how hip-hop started, the goal of hip-hop and the view of God, how hip-hop can be used as a tool for the gospel, and then also what the final purpose of hip-hop is in the life of the listener.
Was that hard for you, like listening to his music, like going all the way back and listening? I mean, because I guess with you being, of course, a pastor, and I'm pretty sure this is something that you don't listen to on a regular basis, and when you're studying a person like Lil Wayne, like, was that hard for you to even sit down and to digest all of that music and all that stuff?
That's a great question. It was very hard, and I did another interview, and I mentioned this. I said I actually had nightmares. And I don't say that to be funny, but I actually did. So it's stuff I don't think people really understand what they're listening to. And what makes it what lessens the effect is that it's put to a beat. But one thing that the book does is that it puts its lyrics on page, and you can read them and see them for yourself. And if I wrote you a letter and I said some of the same things that Dwayne Carter said, you would absolutely be appalled, or you would be disgusted, or you would be shocked. But what he's able to do as a musician and also as an amoral philosopher, what an amoral philosopher does is that they mock what is good and holy. They make you laugh at it to lessen the effect of its offense. So yeah, it was difficult to go through a lot of that. I don't listen to Lil Wayne for fun. I don't really see anything fun about it or pleasurable about it. So that was probably one of the greatest challenges of me writing the book, was having to comb through so much material.
And I know too, like I think like some stuff that Lil Wayne that he talks about, that some people, they really just don't understand what he's saying, so they're not aware. I think with this book that you can probably expose a lot of things about him by giving so much details about him growing up and where he is right now, because people, they listen to it and sometimes you hear stuff but you don't necessarily know what a person is talking about. So if you can pull those, if you're pulling those things out of his music and putting it in your book, and people can be like, oh man, that's what he meant by that, and people just aren't aware of it.
You're right, and I hope so. And my desire, this book it's, even though, not many people have heard about it, probably about, maybe I would guess maybe like 20,000 have heard about it. Many people, they hear a topic like this and they just comment on it, but they won't really take the time to examine the evidence of what I'm saying. In the book, I give you I think there's probably about 30 of his songs, at least 30. And again, it gives you the opportunity to show and to see exactly what he's saying. And then I'm also giving you statistics, national statistics of things that are going on in urban youth, things that have not been going on past the prior 10 years. I have a chapter in the book called The Dying of the Urban Female, speaking about women, young girls in the last 10 years. Now, Lil Wayne's rise to fame really started in the last 10 years, although he's been rapping for a while. And I believe there's a great parallel between his rise and what's been going on with the urban female. Again, 1 out of 14 girls right now has an STD. That's shocking. 2,800 teen girls every day get pregnant. 2,800. Half of those pregnancies end in abortion. There was a new report that came out that said girls' first experience with sex nowadays is group sex. There's been a rise in gang rape. I talk about this in the book. How gang rapes have been on the increase with urban girls. And the question is, where are they getting this stuff from? Where are they getting this stuff from? And it's just no surprise that when you go to an artist who says in his song that he will turn a woman out, turn a girl out, prostitute her, make her sell sex for him, then kill her, then send the body back to the original owner. When you have an artist who says that have sex with them, even if they're celibate, when you have people who are listening to this constantly, day in, day out, 13, 14-year-olds who don't have fathers, what do you think they're going to do? And so people say that it's just music. Well, it's also words. And we know that words are the most powerful thing that people possess. So say, well, parents need to do a better job. Well, parents can't always do a better job because they're not always in the life. So the question is, who is going to confront these things, and who's going to step up to take a greater role in helping you?